art that you do?
My name is Cindy Alexander, and I am an artist. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I make music. And I hope that my music becomes your music. That's the goal.
Well said. Okay. Now tell us a little bit about how you came into music.
My grandmother was a music teacher, and she would play songs, I would sing along, and she taught me piano. And I started taking piano when I was about 6 years old, and I started improvising on Beethoven and Bach, and my teacher fired me. So I kept improvising throughout my life in a lot of different forms, not just music. And my diary and my improvisation on piano became songs, eventually.
Wow.
And eventually people heard them and said, you should do that.
Cool. Now, do you find that if you're writing about your own life, that you kind of like have to put some amount of constraint on it, or do you just let it all out?
No, I let it all out, much to my parents' dismay.
Okay.
But sometimes I've gone through periods in my life where my life is boring, so I write about everybody else's saga. And I'll listen in line at the market, I'll read graffiti on bathroom walls, I love to get inspired by literature and by news articles, things like that. But right now, my latest record, Every Rise and Fall, is absolutely 100% completely my life. And I was on a bit of a hiatus for the last few years because I had twins. And I had just finished the show Start Tomorrow with David Foster on NBC. And I turned down the prize and stayed independent, put out Wobble with the World, but during that whole Wobble with the World journey, I got married and was blessed to be pregnant with twins, gave birth, and my entire life turned upside down. And I had writer's block for a couple years, and then when I finally started writing again, my entire life kind of poured out onto paper, a little bit different than it was, let's say, 10 years ago, or in 1999 when I first started writing.
Wow. Now, you've accomplished some things. You've had a number of successes. What might you suggest to other artists who are looking to you for some inspiration?
I say that success is relative, and that we put pressure on ourselves to be what the public thinks is successful or what commercial values say are successful. And success is really being able to do your art and share it. And when you can have an impact on someone else's life in a positive way, and it can maybe be 10 people in a room, 5 people in a room, that's success. That's success when the art that you've created is embraced by somebody else and it becomes theirs, and the life of that song, the life of that work of art takes on new meaning and becomes more profound. And to me, that's success. And so I kind of changed my vision of what success was, because growing up, you know, my parents were very supportive of me, that they wanted me to go to law school or med school or something like that. There was always this like financial goal that seemed to be attached to success. And when I let go of that and then just embraced what it is that I do and what I was meant to do, I feel very successful. And I've been able to do this. I've been able to put out CDs since 1999 and people buy them, so I guess I'm doing something right.
I would say that's something right.
And there's people out there for a show tonight. One guy flew in from Kentucky, and people drove in from LA and San Diego, so it's for them. My work is for them.
Yay.
And it's not work, it's fun. It's great. And I get to hang out with my best friends who are over there on the other side of this white piece of cardboard that my beautiful backup singer Tina is holding. They're all eating very quietly. And they don't want the food noise to show up on this. But if you hear like some chewing, you know why.
Very good. Now, in terms of talking about a life of an artist, you know, for someone who is looking at this and thinking, yeah, I've got some things to say, I'd like to communicate, but there is the reality of, hey, how do I survive? You know, what might you say to that kind of person?
I say that you do what it is that you need to do so that you can do your art. If you have to do another job to pay your bills, to pay your medical bills, rent, do what you need to do so that you have the time to create, and that you have the means to be the person that you want to be, to keep yourself in good health, to keep clothes on your back. You have to do what you have to do. And if you stick with it hard enough, hopefully more and more of your time becomes more and more of your art. But I had my side gigs. I don't anymore. I'm a full-time mom right now. So it's those extra hours after I put them to sleep that I'm writing. And it's after I put them to bed that I'm doing a show. So
Got it.
and I don't get paid for that.
No.
I get paid here. I'm paid in inspiration. So.
Well said. Good. Now, in terms of the support that you have, I mean, some people look at a singer-songwriter as kind of a solo act. But the reality is, there's a tremendous amount of support, I imagine, that's behind you. Speak
Absolutely.
to that.
My band, my producers, co-writers, Paul Trudeau over there has been my co-writer since, Paul, you've been writing since 1993. I met him because he was playing music really loudly in the apartment building, in the apartment directly above where I lived, and I had a migraine, so I knocked on his door and told him to turn the music down. And we ended up writing together, and now he's still in my band.
Very cool.
But yeah, everybody brings their own take, their own style, and it enhances what I do. Definitely, it's teamwork. We were just talking about that during sound check. We're trying to get a sound together for the room, and it's not just what one person needs; it's what we all need to do together to create the sound for the audience, not just for ourselves personally.
So if a young artist is coming up in the world and looking at what they'd like to communicate and perhaps doesn't have any reality on all of the teamwork that it takes to put this together, you know, what might you say to them? Is
Okay,
that something
well, I should go back and say one thing. Bottom line, it's your career, and you have the veto power, and you make the decisions. And it's important to bring people around you that they don't always tell you that you're right. You need the people that are going to tell you that you're wrong and maybe you should do this. But the people that have your best interest at heart. And bottom line, no one else is going to do the work for you. If it's your name on a record, you know, you've got to figure out how to make it happen. And there's a lot of grunt work involved in being an independent artist. And a lot of things, it's not just about making music, it's about sitting online and doing the, you know, Facebook networking and setting up tours and ordering your merch and selling your merch, unless you're like making huge amounts of money and you're hiring a ton of people to do it. If you gather your fans and you give them a part in your project and it becomes theirs too, then it's amazing what you can do with a very small budget.
Nice.
So I guess that's my advice for people that are just starting out. And if you're still doing it, you know, 13 years later, like I am, you know, my fans are the best. They're everything to me. They keep me going.
Cool. Speak to social media and how you see that plays into working as an artist.
I toured around the world because of social media. I met fans or people approached me. Like one guy was in Germany and he said, "I love your music. Why don't you come over here and do some shows? I'll help set them up for you." And I said, "Great." So I took some chances there. That's how I got to Ireland. That's how I got to UK, Germany. It's all about that. And I was kind of discovered online during the whole MP3 Napster days back in the 90s. And now I'm able to pretty much tour around the U.S. and people will show up because that's where they know me from. So.
Now, technology has made it somewhat easier to get the ideas of your music into the reality of a digital form, and yet it's also brought in many more artists trying to do so. Would you say that this technology that has come up in the last decade or so, is it how much it's helped you, and then do you consider that it's also changed things because of the competitive nature that's also fault, i.e. more people coming in?
I see technology as a necessity for an independent artist, the social media. I don't view music as competitive, I never have. I was an actress before I was a musician, and that's competitive. There's only one part and everybody's vying for that part. If you're yourself, nobody else is going to be you. So to me, music is not competitive. So I wouldn't let anybody, I would tell people not to let that discourage them. The amount of music that's out there, it's great. More to be inspired by, food for the soul.
Good. And then what would you say is a first or at least early step or a couple steps for someone who is recognized that they have talent, or maybe some of their the folks that are close to them have suggested to me, hey, you should do something with this. What do you think would be the earlier steps they should take?
I say you play live. When I first started writing music, I used to go to the replication place, and I would just, at the time, this is dating myself now, it was tapes. And my very first demos were on tapes. And I wasn't doing any shows, I was just making these tapes. And the guy that owned the duplication place said, Cindy, this music is meant to be shared. People need to hear it. It's not just on a tape. You have to share it. And it was when I started playing live that the momentum started, and I started to build a following. You don't build a following just by making a CD. You have to get out there, play your music live. And I used to joke that a live show is kind of like selling Tupperware. Because if you do your part during the show, they buy the CDs, they buy the merch. So go do a live Tupperware show.
Good analogy.
Musical Tupperware.
All right, so
maybe I should sell Tupperware.
So we're kind of getting near the end of this.
Okay.
I'd like to get some a little bit more insight into any messages that you yourself consider is something you're trying to convey to others.
I say don't hide your truth. And sometimes telling the truth is painful, but you put it out there. Because the stuff that you so want to hide, that you think is that private and that personal, is what other people need to hear, because they can't share it. They have no way of expressing it. And when you put that stuff in a song, that's what really moves people. That's what touches people. And that's, to me, part of my purpose as an artist, to be able to say things that people can't say themselves. I guess that's it.
Cool. And then if you wanted to sort of summate your career or your aspirations into a few words that you might tell your parents about why you're doing this, or what's resulted as you're coming this far, or coming to this point, what would you say?
Being able to sing and making music is my gift, and I give it back.
Well said.
Don't get me crying.
Don't mess up the makeup.
Well said. All right, so we're going to wrap. Was there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, come into my show
Okay.
if you want it.
Thank you, Sam. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Okay. Now I'm going to eat. Okay. What time is it?
7:38.